Okay, hi guys. This is Michael Specjalski, and we have my guest, my colleague Marius Reikerås. Hi, Marius.
Hi.
Once more.
Nice
Once
to
more.
see you
We
again.
are we are still fighting. We're still fighting.
Still fighting.
So
Yeah.
Marius, as those who don't know, is a famous lawyer from Norway, and he's fighting Norwegian government for more than I think 15 years or more.
Yeah, more than almost 25 years.
Oh, 25 years, yes. So, Marius, we are on the OSCE conference. So we in Warsaw, it's Human Dimension conference. It's 2 weeks. We're finishing the first week. You came, I think yesterday.
We arrived 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we have been on the plenary. And also some side events. We can talk a bit how it's OSCE, how you see it, and then gonna go for Norway to feedback Norway, because not all see Norway how it's in practice. Norway have a very good public relation. Yesterday we have a very interesting meeting. We can have a few words about it, and then if we finish with Jan Stoltenberg, and we try to answer the question if NATO, the last NATO chairman was a Soviet spy. So we're gonna see. Okay, Marius. So we it's which Human Dimension implementation meetings is yours? You are here for fifth time?
This is my fourth time in
Fourth time.
Warsaw. I've been many times in Warsaw, of course, due to my work, but in this specific session, it's my fourth time. Yes.
Okay, so what is your impression? This organization changing, or you see some progress in some topics? Do you see it's like only diplomatic facade theater, or there is some change, there is some influence? Because this conference is one of the least that NGOs can speak directly to diplomats. And do you see any, you asked yesterday our friend from the United States if it's worth it to come from New York here, Mr. Stefan Brenner, yes, I think so. So what is is it worth it to come here? And do you see the changes, or is it like a theater for diplomats?
Well, I'll try to make it into a brief summary. Yes and no. I think that first of all, for me to travel to Warsaw is, I have a very good relations with the Polish people and the Polish, since Poland has been one of the main contributors in our fight against the Norwegian child welfare system. So first of all, I feel very, welcome here. I always like to be in Poland. So for me personally, it's always good to be here. When it comes to the terms of do we benefit from this conference or not, that's a question I'm, to be honest, very uncertain to whether to say yes or no. I think it's, of course, like you said, it's good that this is a big human rights conference. It's a possibility for NGOs and also for people to speak out about the problems within their own countries. I see that there are 57 member states here, and every organization, of course, is fighting for their own cases and their own goods, and that's understandable. And it's hard to compete when everybody's competing about the floor. It's hard to compete and to get the messages out. This year, I think, is more profitable for us to come here. I brought with me 2 human rights defenders from Norway. You're familiar with them. Yeah. We're going to make some videos later where they're going to reveal some very, very interesting information to the Norwegian people. And by doing that from here, I think it makes a stronger expression marks than what it would have done if we were in Norway, because at least people back home, the government, they will pay attention to the videos, and they will see that we are here and that we are able to, to deliver our remarks to an international audience.
Yeah, we can always, we as NGOs, we can speak out on the plenary. Exactly. So the 57 ambassadors are listening. We can register our written statements to the OSCE, and basically OSCE is obliged to take them into account and maybe slowly make some policies. I see because we are advocating that human rights in Europe are violated, because OSCE was mostly, when I was starting in 2018, focused on Central Asia. So basically, Europe is very good, and Central Asia are autocracies, and we need them Europeize them regarding human rights.
Exactly.
It's also like this, but now I think there is more balance. I see some even from the OSCE directors a change, and there are some new programs. For instance, this I think 2022 or 2003 they had some issues regarding the pandemic. So the limitation of the basic freedoms in pandemic. So we also was fighting for it. Now we see the persecution of Christians. OSCE office first time said that there is a topic of persecution of Christians. It was about Jews, gypsies, whatever, other religion, but Christians is first time. So there is some change, I think, but it's a slow change.
There are some changes also to the positive side, and when we were invited here this year, it was not in my doubt to come here because, like I said, it's an international stage where at least you can exchange ideas with other people who share your interest in human rights issues, and you can also transfer your ideas to the international audience in a way you cannot do at home. So basically, that's it's a good thing to do that, and I think you're right about the perspectives that maybe there is more of actual progressive movement now than what it used to be before. So it's not as much blah blah blah, but maybe more concrete details that
more
are coming
concrete.
out.
I see that it's more concrete, especially on the side events. There are more concrete discussions.
Blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Because the plenary session is always blah blah, a bit blah blah. Because the diplomats must, are limited to the positions of their governments. Of course, we understand it. We are fighting for the same cause from 2018. So that you are fighting with the child welfare system. Our foundation, Mother Foundation, was fighting for the child rights, basically. So we have the same goal. And how it's with Norway? Because we spoke yesterday that Norway formally comply with some judgments of the Ministry of the Court of Human Rights. Yes, Ministry of European. Yes, you can say about how Norway is obliging after the convictions. They had many convictions.
39 convictions since 2018, and they're not complying with any of them. That's the hard and sad truth about what's going on. Sadly, Norway has managed to persuade the Committee of Ministers, who are the body who is supposed to surveil that the countries are complying with the judgments. So Norway, after all these years, have been able to pursue the committee that Norway is doing enough to comply with the judgments. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, of course. But recently, the committee closed 6 of the pending cases before the committee. One of them is the Loven case, the famous Loven case. I will make, once I get back to Norway from this conference, I will make a formal complaint. I will ask them to reopen the cases again. And the reason why is that I think that Norway has been able to bribe the committee, tell a truth that is not actually happening.
You mean bribe? So they basically finance the institution, the organization?
Not in the terms of financing, but I think that they have told the committee things that are not true.
Okay. So they're making false moves to hide their...
My opinion, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you see the Loven case, which I'm most familiar with. But I would also mention the AS case, because that involves a Polish one. And that's one of the cases who have been closed now. Also. And the same happened to her as with Mrs. Loven. They have done nothing at all, the government, to facilitate reunification between mother and child.
Yeah. They pay the financial compensation?
They pay that symbolic compensation of 25,000 euro to both of them. That's like nothing to Norway anyway. But they have done nothing to restore justice.
Yeah.
Or
the judges in Norway, from the famous, those judges who are coming to Poland and were advocating for judicial independence, those the same judges
Yeah,
were ruling in Norway that they don't gonna open the cases in a Norwegian legal system based on those courts, or the children are used to new families, so they're not gonna reunify. Yes, it was like this. Or?
They simply ignored the judgments by saying that they will not reopen the cases in the Norwegian judiciary. And that's one of the things. They do nothing at all to facilitate the government, who has the legislative responsibility for these judgments, is doing nothing to facilitate a reunification between mother and children, or families and children. And second of all, to be honest, we don't see any improvements in the Norwegian judiciary. Rather the opposite. I have with me a father here today who's been fighting for more than 2 years now to regain the custody of his son. And he was hoping that these judgments would help him, because that's obviously what they...
Okay, Marius. So we were talking about the judgments. From our Polish perspective, you can also see that not only the government of Norway is not changing, but also the judges. So the whole system, basically, in Norway is showing for the international community that he's doing something, but in practice, what you're commenting, it's a facade, it's a theater.
It's definitely a facade. And actually, I think for some people, it's gotten worse. I see that human rights defenders in Norway, after the judgment, are being more targeted.
Okay.
I have numerous examples how people are being threatened or even imprisoned after the judgments. We have one gentleman here today who is here in Warsaw, who's 72 years old now, who was imprisoned for 6 months because he was fighting for a family who fled to Poland.
So it was the case was that he was helping.
He was helping a family whose child or daughter was taken into public care
By administrative decision.
by an administrative decision,
Not a judicial.
And and the child was begging him to. She said that I will commit suicide unless I will be reunited with my mom. And this gentleman helped her, and they were able to move to Poland. And the end of the story was that he was persecuted and put in prison for 6 months at the age of 71.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So, and I have numerous. So this is, like you said, this is facade, and I'm extremely disappointed also by the committee of ministers who have been able to be persuaded by the government to close these cases. And I would like to mention that I will write a letter to the Polish government to make them aware of the AS versus Norway case, and that Norway has also abandoned this Polish mother and her son by not doing anything to reunify the mother and the child.
And what we see, because a lot of Norwegian families came to Poland for asylum seeking and so on, and they were persuaded to come back by the families, and the families were persuaded by the authorities. So they were, telling them that they're gonna have a safe process, and the child is gonna go back, and they basically tricked them.
They tricked them. It was a trap.
It was a trap.
Basically, they told the mother and who was in Poland with the child that if you come back with the child, things will go their way. And 2 years later, we see that it was another trap, that they're not going to return the child. Rather, the opposite once again. I think they will go for an adoption.
And now their activities look like this, that they want to create the time is gonna pass, and they're gonna decide that the child are adjusted to the new family.
Yes. The Norwegian thumbing rules is that if the child has been in a foster home or in an institution for more than 2 years, or roughly 2.5 years, they should go for an adoption process instead, because the child has been assimilated into the new family, and it would be irresponsible to bring the child back to the biological parents.
Okay, so basically we see that there is a bias between the opinion about Norway and the practice of the elites. And one of the elites you were describing yesterday was Jan Stoltenberg, so a very famous Norwegian.
Very famous.
He was a prime minister and a former NATO
he was a prime minister. He served 2 terms as a prime minister in Norway before back in 2014, when he lost the election in Norway, he became the general secretary of NATO.
And then he was advising, I think, Zelensky also when the war started in Ukraine, I think so.
Absolutely, yeah.
So a very famous person.
Very famous person.
And you were making some complaints or
yeah, I mean,
what was the case? You couldn't explain for the Polish.
I've been a strong critic against Jens Stoltenberg for many years, but my main focus on the criticism is his war against Libya in 2011. So because in 2011 he was the prime minister of Norway. And in April of 2011, almost by his own decision, he decided with the then foreign minister, who's now the prime minister, Jonas Gahr Støre, to send almost 600 Norwegian bombs over Libyan territory.
And the Norwegian parliament acknowledged this, agreed?
That's the interesting thing. They weren't even asked. So this was a clear breach against our Norwegian constitution, of course. So he basically did this by himself. He decided that the government of Norway back then will send 600, or specifically 588 bombs over Libyan territory, and they did. And we don't know the number of casualties. We just know that Libya is a devastated country by now. And one of the reasons why I engaged...
And divided.
Indeed divided, yeah. And it's caused Libya to be one of the most destroyed countries on the planet. But that was the reason maybe why I got so involved in the Libya case, was because in 2009, I was in Libya. I was in Tripoli. I drove from Tunis to Tripoli. And I met a country in balance, in harmony, and in my opinion, definitely the most successful country in Africa at that time. So they
were trying. Gaddafi was trying to introduce African currency, and the central banks to went out from the US dollar. So many theories are saying that they were attacked by US and their, I don't know, subordinates, and also Norway.
Norway was part of it. Actually, Norway was one of the main contributors to the bombing of Libya. And the sad part was that when this was happening, like I told you, the government of Jens Stoltenberg did not approve of these actions in the parliament. And he also made a specific lie in the parliament when he said that the justification of bombing Libya was supported by the whole world, which was a complete lie, because the African Union denied it. Russia denied it, India denied it, even Germany denied it. So there were Brazil and so on. So there were so many countries who opposed to the war.
So it was pure geopolitics and pure unjust, basically in Libya.
And the scary part for me, and then I can draw some similarities to the child welfare system too, that the indifference in Norway about what the war crimes that he committed back in 2011 is so immense. And the same is it with all the judgments from the ECHR too, that people don't care, people don't even know about it. If you ask a random person about the Stoltenberg's bombing in Libya in 2011, if you walk the streets in Oslo, for instance, hardly no one will even recognize it, or they don't have any knowledge about it. And the same applies to the judgments in the ECHR too, that if you do the same test, if you walk the streets of Oslo and ask how many times Norway has been convicted in the ECHR, people have no clue.
And you're describing because the reason the media bias and connection with the government.
Exactly.
That Norway is a small country. You have 2.5 million, 5.5 million, and you have the structure of the media. It's subsidized. The media are subsidized by the government.
Precisely, they are financed by the government, and they depend.
So there are governmental finance media, and the population doesn't know critical information about the government.
No, I think we're maybe one of the few walls in the world, maybe North Korea too, who have...
Yeah, yesterday you said we have been on a dinner with our friend from the United States. You compared North Korean population with the Norwegians.
The conformity of the Norwegian population is... But that's scientifically proven. That Norway, I think, was ranked number 5 among the 5 most conformed countries in the world. I think North Korea was on top. I think South Korea was number 4, Norway was number 5. So that's scientifically proven.
And that totalitarian state or authoritarian states need this kind of population kind of approach, that they are not critical, they don't judge, they don't take into accountability. So it's kind of maybe totalitarianism in kind of in the gloves.
No, to be frank about that, I mean, Norwegian people, even from their early school days, are taught that Norway has the best system, that the government takes care of everyone, that we are endorsing human rights perfectly, and so on and so on. So the people, I remember when I started my first class in law school, I will never forget that day. And the professor said to the young students, I was 21 back then, that welcome to the best law school in the world. And everybody was saluting because, yes, we have the best legal system. And when I was starting to...
and you were believing this?
No, I didn't believe it.
You didn't believe it?
I didn't do it because I've been like an outsider my whole life. But anyway, when I started to indulge myself in human rights law, I mean, my school friends, my friends at law school said that, why are you doing that? It's such a waste of time when we have the best legal system in the world. We don't need any human rights because our laws are better. And that, I remember when I started practicing law in the courts, the judges were looking at me with this hopeless mind in their faces, saying that, are you coming to me and tell about human rights? It's bullshit. I don't even know about it. So
the
judges. So they ignored it. And even now, 20, almost 30 years later, they still ignore it. So they don't, judges and lawyers in Norway, they hate the word human rights. They don't like it. That's as simple as that.
But they were coming to Poland and were advocating for human rights, constitutional basic freedoms, and so on. So they're
and you remember the case with Kowalski, the Polish diplomat who was expelled from Norway.
Polish general consulate in Norway.
Exactly. And he was, trying to bring human rights issues on behalf of Polish families in Norway, and he was expelled.
Yes, he was intervening in Barnevern.
Intervening with the CPS system, and the outcome of his efforts was that he was thrown back to Poland.
And he got a medal here.
He got a medal here, and I truly support him as well. But that tells very much about how things are working. But back to the judgments, nobody in Norway knows that Norway has been convicted almost 40 times since 2018. But the problem is that I think in many ways we have seen things gotten to be worse, because to me it feels like the judges and the system want some revenge. They want to retaliate the people who stood up for human rights. So things have become, in my opinion, even worse for some, at least for some people in our country. And I can tell you that not a single case of these 39 convictions where Norway has been convicted for violating Article 8 of the Convention has been complied with by the government in any way that can be satisfactory according to the reparation rules in the HHR. So this will be like a test also for the committee, because I will confront them with the fact that they have been fooled by the Norwegian government, and things are much worse than they have been told. That's the sad fact.
So it's a bit pessimistic, but we are fighting more still, and you're gonna. So only this kind of conferences, these international organizations, can be only the one way for Norwegian human rights defenders and people that were had problems with the Norwegian government to do anything else, because in the internally in Norway they're hopeless, and you're saying that it's even worse.
In many of the cases I've seen, it's even worse. We have that specific example with that guy who's here in Poland now, whose child was taken 2.5 years ago, and his rights. I mean, according to if Norway were to respect judgments from the ECHR, he would have had his son back way 2 years ago. Now it seems like they're also targeting him because he is like also trying to promote his human rights, and that's the sad example that we see he's not alone. There are many other people as well who have been targeted by a system that is seeking like some kind of revenge. You remember when Trude Lobben won that case, that very famous Grand Chamber case back in September 2019, more than 6 years ago. And we were celebrating like there was no tomorrow back then in Strasbourg. And a few days later, her child turned 11 years old, and he also won in the European Court, you know. And she came to his school with a birthday card. And that birthday card, it said, "Happy birthday, my lovely son, and congratulations with your victory in the ECHR." And you know what happened? The police came and took her with her, and they issued like a restraining order, you know, that he was not allowed. And in that restraining order, the police in Drammen said that if she was approaching her son again, she would go to jail. So that was like how they responded to the judgment from the ECHR, giving her a restraining order. And after 2019, I've seen so many examples of human rights defenders who have been persecuted, harassed, bank accounts frozen, and so on. So when we attended this seminar yesterday in the plenary assembly, and listening to journalists who were living in exile and so on, I felt very related to what they were telling, because I could tell, like, you know.
But they were saying about Central Asian countries, so
Russia.
And Russia. So, and when you compare to Norway,
so
everyone
this
is, you know.
I could tell the same lecture about what's going on in Norway.
Yeah. So, of course, we must put this on even more on the agenda in the OSCE. We have contacts in United States. I think we're gonna bring this Norway. We're gonna do as Norway. We're gonna be more hard. We're gonna be more strong, and we're gonna make more awareness on it, and we're gonna push it even more. So it's only we can do it like this.
To wind up this interview with formal statements.
Okay.
So we still need to raise more awareness about what's going on in the Norwegian system in order to support all the people who are facing human rights violations there. So my message to the OSCE is quite clear, and it's short, but it's specific, and it sounds like follows: distinguished delegates. My name is Marius Reikerås, and I speak on behalf of Norwegian citizens who have experienced systematic violations of their human rights. In Norway, we like to think of ourselves as human rights champions, but behind this image lies a darker reality of families torn apart by the child protection service system, of a media controlled by the states, of activists labeled as radical rights simply for exercising free speech, and of a justice system that too often shields itself from accountability. When the state controls both the courts, the media, the oversight bodies, and the narrative, there can be no true rule of law. So today I ask the OSCE to remind Norway that no nation, not even Norway, is above scrutiny, and that human rights must apply equally also in the North and in Norway. Thank you.
Thank you, Marius.